Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 110 of Kouryer Podcast. Our today's guest is Mr. Gavin Manners. He was a former interior architect, which we're going to talk about, but now he's working as a digital artist, mostly interested in vehicles, mechs, robots, and environment arts. And now he's a senior concept artist at Atomhawk Studios from Newcastle, United Kingdom. Now, with that quick introduction out of the way, could you please give us a little introduction on how you got into visual arts and design?
Yeah, no problem. Um, so, um, do you want the long version or do you want the short version?
Long version, definitely.
Well, basically, I sort of grew up in the 90s and I've always loved, I used to love like Transformers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, stuff like that. And I used to love playing computer games as well. But there was never any like I had no idea that you could make money by like painting and drawing spaceships and robots for video games. Like that just wasn't a thing when I was younger. So I've taken a bit of a strange route into concept art. So I, I I actually finished school. So in England, you finish school at about 16, and then this is me at school. I'm always like, drawing robots and stuff in my exercise books, and playing Final Fantasy 7 when I get home from school, stuff like that. So I finished school, and I just wanted some money, so I started doing an electrical apprenticeship, um, which is like rewiring houses and like a trade. But as somebody, art was my best subject at school, but again, I was kind of always told that you couldn't make any money doing art. Um, and I was really into Warhammer and stuff, so I just wanted money to buy models and paints and things like that. Um, but because I'm such a creative person, I really didn't get on with the electrical stuff. So it was a 3-year course, 3-year apprenticeship, and I did 2 years of it. And I was just getting so miserable. So I just kind of it was really difficult because I hate quitting things and I hate giving up, but you know it kind of coincided with my I was moving towns at the same time, so I just kind of thought, right, I'm going to give this a rest, and if I absolutely need to, I can come back and finish the rest of the course later on. But I'm gonna stop doing electrical work, and I'm gonna try and pursue like a creative sort of career. So went to college, did like art and design. Again, there was no real kind of inclination that you could do anything to do with concept art because there were no game courses or concept art courses back then. So this was back in 2004. Um, and so this 2-year course, um, there was this. You had three things you could do. You could do fashion design, illustration, or 3D design. But we're talking the kind of illustration where you like illustrate like Financial Times magazines or something like that. I was still really into computer games and sci-fi, and at that time I was playing loads of Morrowind. Getting home from college every day and spending hours on Morrowind. Um, so it kind of turns out that I was pretty good at 3D design. Like I have a 3D brain. I can think in my head in 3D, and I kind of just went down the road of like architectural design because it was in my mind it was something that I was quite good at spatially designing things, and it was something that I could make money out of. So I ended up getting a place at university course um, in the UK, and then I did my 3-year university degree in interior architecture, and then I spent all of my 20s working for like different places in like London and on the south coast, designing like exhibitions. So I designed stuff for like, oh, wow. To be fair, I was a junior, so I helped design and did like architectural visualization for like the Natural History Museum and the British Museum and the V&A Museum. I don't know if you've heard of any of those, but they're like the big kind of London museums. Um, and then also I went on to do like retail, so worked in like department stores, designing shops and displays and rails and but all of this, it was great because I was kind of doing something creative, and I was earning all right money. but it just wasn't scratching that itch, you know. It wasn't leaving me sort of creatively fulfilled, and I did that for like 8 years, you know. As, and I was getting towards my 30th birthday, and I just wasn't very happy. Um, and all the way through my 20s as well, I'm going home, I'm painting like Gundam models. I'm really into that community online. We used to have like the forums and stuff for painting Gundam models. um, and then I'm also like drawing robots and spaceships, and I wasn't very good at it, but I got my first Wacom tablet, and I was just really trying to get into digital painting. But obviously, there weren't really. You had like conceptart.org, that kind of thing, but I wasn't very good, so I never posted anything up. But they had some tutorials here and there, and there were some early kind of Gnomon tutorials you could get hold of if you knew where to look. But again, it wasn't really the big thing it is now. So um, I always just kind of wrote it off as something that other people did, and I was never going to. It wasn't anything that I was ever going to be able to get into because I wasn't sort of good enough. Um, so I, this is a bit of a side note as well. Because I wasn't, again, because I didn't really feel like I was good enough to get into concept art, and because I was getting really, really creatively frustrated with doing interiors. I actually did a teacher training course as well. So I'm a qualified teacher, and I was teaching on a game course down in Brighton, where I'm from, teaching a bunch of ungrateful teenagers how to draw and design robots and stuff. And I would have thought that would have been like really good fun, but they weren't interested. They didn't want to know. So it's incredibly demotivating when you're going into a group of people with all being really passionate about something and really like excited, and they just it's like pulling teeth trying to get them to do the work. But anyway, that's like a whole different story. um, so I did that for a couple of years, and I did that alongside doing the interiors stuff because I was freelance. And I don't know if this is linked, but this is the story that I tell myself in my head. When two things happen at the same time, and you just go, well, those things clearly are related. So 'cause I was freelance, and around the time Brexit happened, I completely ran out of work. There was like no work. Um, and I mainly worked in luxury retail, and I figured it was because people stopped building shops or nobody knew what was going to happen around Brexit. So all of the work dried up. So I didn't have work for 8 months, and so it got to a point where I was like selling my stuff to try and pay the rent. But in those 8 months, I used that time to just go like crazy trying to do my portfolio for my concept art stuff because I turned 30, and I decided I wasn't really that happy doing what I was doing, and I knew that I wanted to be a concept artist because Feng Zhu was doing his design cinema, and other artists started bringing out tutorials, so I kind of knew that's exactly what I wanted to do. Um, oh, and I kind of I around around the same sort of time I applied for an internship down at Creative Assembly, and Creative Assembly do like the Total War Warhammer games, and I actually didn't get that job. But the great thing about not getting a job is it shows you your weaknesses and what you need to work on. So from the feedback I got from that interview, I knew what I needed to show in my portfolio. So I used all of that time to um, put what I think needed to be in my portfolio. And I actually reached out to a couple of artists as well. There's a guy called Nick Foreman who works at Sumo Digital, and I think he still works there actually. He gave me some really, really great advice. And a couple of other guys. I can't remember who they were, but Nick Foreman sticks out in my mind. He was a really cool guy. Um, and so, I'm applying for jobs and reaching out to people, working on my, portfolio all day, every day. And I got a really, really lucky break. Um, where a company called Rooster Teeth. I don't know if you know them. They're based out in Austin, and they make like internet like series. So they did like Red and Blue, which was really famous. They did Ruby as well, which is like a Western anime type thing. And they were developing this new TV series called Genlock, which was about these big kind of anime mecha robots. and that's kind of the sort of thing that I had in my portfolio. Now, it wasn't like I've I've always really enjoyed doing like mechanics and robots and stuff. And I was just drawing lots of that stuff, and it was only line drawings. Like I didn't know anything about like proper lighting and composition and all that kind of stuff. So I've kind of learned that since. But they could obviously see that you know they could um, they could use me in developing this series. Obviously, I was really junior, so they didn't pay me very much, which is fine because I got such good experience out of it, and I learned a lot. And they just contacted me over ArtStation and said, it was one of those things where I'd never heard of them before. I just thought, is this some kind of scam? People contacting you over ArtStation, promising you like jobs and stuff. But I did a call with them. It all seemed legit. The other thing I was worried about was I going to do the work and then I wouldn't get paid, which is when you're doing freelance work, you just kind of have to have a bit of faith and trust people. And I've never been burnt, which has been really nice. People always pay. Um, and yeah, I just from then I worked freelance with them for about a year and a half, something like that, and actually went out to Austin to meet them all, which was really cool. Went around the studio and met everybody that I'd been working with remotely for that time. And then I'd always been looking for a studio job because I kind of knew that I needed to be in a studio to kind of. My main thing is like I'm not after money. I'm not after like fame or exposure or whatever. I just want to get better. Which is actually that's something that's never going to happen because what I'm looking for is I'm looking to meet my own expectations. But as an artist, I don't know if you find this, but I call it the curse of the creative. You're never going to be happy with anything that you do, and you're always going to be trying to push to the next level, which is fine. That's the reason. I think that's the reason why I got so good so quickly because I'm just always trying to get to that next level. So I wanted to get into a studio um, to level up and just to learn the industry and just to be pushed. Um, the way that I got, so I know I've been rambling quite a lot, but the way that I got this first job at Electric Square, I this is like a bit personal life, but it's a funny story. So I had broken up with a girlfriend around that time. This was like early 2018, and so I was going on like Tinder dates as you do, um, and I was seeing this woman, and I can't remember how it happened, but I was basically saying that I'm freelance at the moment. I want to get into the games industry. I just like you're just talking. I don't know anybody in the games industry, and then so she said, "Oh no, it was something like I was looking for a desk space or something because I wanted to work in a studio with other concept artists on a freelance basis." Anyway, I can't quite remember, but it turns out that she knew a guy who worked in a studio with I don't know if you've heard of him, a guy called Giles Ketting. He's a really good concept artist. He's done like Star Wars and all that kind of stuff. Um, and so basically, from this Tinder date, I met this other concept artist, and he then informed me about this thing in Brighton called the Brighton Games Industry Drinks, which is so it turns out that there's 5 really big game studios in Brighton, which is the town where I'm from. I had absolutely no idea that they existed or that hundreds of people that work in all these companies were at a pub once a month that I go to all the time. So I had no idea who these people were. And once I found out, it just kind of unlocked this whole world of possibility. Um, and that's the advice I always give to people. It's just like you have to go to industry events and meet people and just start, even if your work isn't that good, like you're gonna get good, and you need to foster relationships with people because then if they can see you getting better and they know you and they know that you're a cool guy, then you'll be the person that they go to, or when you apply for a job, they'll go, oh yeah, I met that guy at the industry drinks. He's a really cool guy. Um, so I went out on my first industry drinks night. Ended up meeting a bunch of guys. Showed my portfolio. One of the guys gave my portfolio to his art director, and I had a job interview 2 weeks later, and then I pretty much got the job a week later. So I always have it in my head that I got my first industry job, which is probably one of the best moments of my life, because it's like, you spend so long like struggling and striving and trying to get better and pushing, and then you just get that thing. And that was I felt I was on top of the world for like 6 months. It was brilliant. I got that because of I broke up with a girlfriend and went on a Tinder date, and then that led to me getting this amazing job, which has started this amazing career that I've had over the last couple of years. Um, that was a bit of a lengthy story, but that's pretty much how I got into the industry. Um, oh, and then I went to Electric Square. Was a really really fun place to work. Really enjoyed it there. But there was only a couple of concept artists, so um, I wasn't learning as much as I thought I could learn. And I always knew that a company called Atomhawk had, it was just a company full of really, really cool concept artists, and a couple of guys that I really like aspired to be like. So there's a guy called Marco Gorlay, guy from South Africa. He was working there, and a guy called Morton Solgarden. Um, I think I'm pronouncing his name properly. Apologies if I'm not. Um, their style is something that I really wanted to emulate. So the idea of going um, and working with them and kind of learning from them, it was, that's what I wanted to do. I wasn't planning on leaving Electric Square, but I went to THU, which is the big industry event, which was in Malta that year. And I met Atomhawk. I originally went to get like a portfolio review because I wanted to know how to improve my work or what they would be looking for if I was to ever apply. And they just invited me to come up for an interview. They said, we're really impressed with your portfolio, and we really want you to come and work for us. And again, that was another one of those moments where you're like, oh my god, this is amazing. I can't believe I've got to this stage. And then yeah, I kind of it was a really quick move, so I got the job, and then I was up in Newcastle, which is so Brighton is one of the most southern places in Britain, in England, and then Newcastle's the most northern city. So I've literally moved in 3 months. I moved away from all my friends, all my family, to the other end of the country because I really wanted the opportunity to be in this company with all these people and like learning and I'm happy to say it has paid off. I've been to Atomhawk nearly 2 years now, um, and although I've still got lots to learn, there's still lots of things that I don't know. I'm really really pleased with my progress. It's really important, I think, to look back at how far you've come. It can be it can be really it's a really easy trap to fall into, to always be looking ahead and looking at what you don't know. You can forget to look back and look at how far you've come. And so recently, I've been reminding myself to you know open up your hard drive and have a look at some stuff that you did 10 years ago, and then it's kind of good to see. It's motivating. That was a bit of a monologue. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. It was actually perfect because this is actually what I like when it comes to podcasts: long answers, short questions. Because you can just chill and just get tunnel vision that what the guest or the host is talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my personal opinion, but maybe some people don't really care. I don't know. And all right, the next kind of thing I want to ask you about is, I mean, I already mentioned that you first were an interior architect, and you also gave it extensive, background of
Mm.
yourself of how it happened. But were you originally studying, art and design, or were you pursuing another career path? Like, for example, you first were, doing interior architect. How did that happen? And then how, from then, how did it, like, transfer to concept art? And here's the thing: when you got into concept art, how did you know? All right, I'm just gonna laser focus on robots and makes and environments because that's gonna get me a job. Like, how was this whole process?
Yeah, it's strange. I don't know why I went into architecture because another avenue that was also open to me was like product design, because that in that college course that I did, that was in the same kind of remit as like 3D design, they called it. So you could do like interiors, product design. That was probably it actually. Maybe sculpture, something like that, something like less sort of tangible. Um, but I just I really enjoyed. I tell you what it is. I think This is a long time ago, but I think it's because I just really loved making models. I've always been interested in Warhammer, like miniature scale model type things. And the thing I loved most about the architecture stuff is making architectural models, and then you can get the little scale people, and then put it in the model, and then you can see how it just brings the whole design to life because it gives it context. And I think that's what I really enjoyed about architecture. Um, and I like this idea of imagining new places or creating places that don't exist, you know. Um, and in terms of what was the second question? Sorry.
Like how when you realized you wanted to go to concept art side and like and you got to the concept art side, how was the whole process of finding your niche of wanting to focusing on mixing
Oh
robots
yeah,
and
yeah.
environments as a job?
Well, this is the thing. I didn't actually now as somebody who is like so let's say I've got 10 I had at the time 10 years experience designing, if you include my university degree, 10 years experience designing like spaces. I didn't actually I wasn't actually very good at environments, and the reason for that is the composition and lighting and color and mood and all that stuff completely eluded me. I found that stuff like really difficult, and I just couldn't understand how to separate your group your values, what colors to choose, what does everything look like? Because in my mind, it was still like a separate thing. Interiors to me was boring shops and clothes rails and things like that, and but concept art was like, oh my god, like amazing fantasy forests and castles and all that kind of stuff. I still just wasn't making that link in my head that the two things were kind of interlinked, and you could once I realized, and I've only realized it over the last couple of years, that you can use those design skills and transfer those into the spaces that you design for environments. It's just using different tools. Um, that's I mean, I think that's probably why I was very surprised that Atomhawk wanted me to come in as a senior, because at the time I had less than 2 years experience in the industry. And I think it's because of all my design experience and the fact that I was a qualified teacher as well, because at Atomhawk we do a lot of leading. So the seniors will lead the intermediates and the juniors. So I'll be doing a lot of looking at people's work and um, seeing how they could do things differently, trying to push them a bit further, which is kind of like a teaching role. And I fell into that position like effortlessly because of all my experience dealing with you know difficult teenagers. um, so what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, well, to be honest, I've only just recently been doing environments. I started off doing mechs because I just really enjoyed the idea of a big giant robot. Like I've always been really interested in Gundam. My favorite stuff in Warhammer was always the big robots and dreadnoughts and Imperial Knights, things like that. I don't know. I think maybe it's because I was exposed to a lot of Transformers as a kid. I don't know what it is. I've always gravitated towards robots, and that was what I was, and spaceships as well. No, to a lesser degree, but I really enjoyed doing those as well. But because that's what I had in my portfolio, that's the job that I got. So the reason I got the job at Electric Square is because I knew about vehicles, and um, the, the 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 first job that I got was a car game. So I was designing loads of vehicles, and I could draw in perspective. So it just kind of happened out of luck that I just got picked up for for doing things that I kind of was doing in my spare time anyway. And now when people ask me how to get into the industry or how do you get your first job, because a common thing that again, this is I'm not very experienced. I've only been in the industry, coming up. Well, it's just over 3 years now, maybe 3.5 years. So I'm not the best person to talk about this. But the advice that I can only give advice based on my own sort of personal experience. The advice that I give is typically in student portfolios, you'll see they're trying to do everything. So you'll have environments and you'll have characters and you'll have props and obviously you don't, as a student, you haven't had enough time to be very good at all of those things, let alone one of them. So it's kind of just not very good examples of lots of different things, and it shows like this. It kind of shows a lack of focus and a lack of kind of ability. Whereas I always tell people, pick something that you um, really are passionate about. So for me, it was hard surface design and like sci-fi, really. And even though that seems quite limiting, you know, I got a job because I was laser focused on that, and I did that all the time. And now I've literally only been doing environments for the last year. So a year ago, I didn't really know how to do environments in terms of like the color and the lighting, and now like a year later, I'm doing a lot of environment stuff at work. Do Atomhawk, we do training tasks, which is really cool. So there's a really nice environment of professional development. So we get training days where we don't do any work. We have tasks set by other members of staff. Um, so if I want to learn environments, they'll set me up with one of the guys who is really good at environments, and will do, he'll point me in the right direction, and you can learn loads that way. And so we're doing stuff like that all the time. So I've made a lot of progress in my environments in the last year. But before then, I was like the hard surface specialist, and it felt really limiting. But and also, again, it's one of those things where you don't know how much you know because you're always looking at the next thing. I even had a conversation with a guy at work today, Jordan. He does these a guy called Jordan Tuffin. He does these fantastic architectural drawings. He's like a master at like architecture, um, like ancient like Chinese temples and Buddhist stuff, and he really knows his stuff when it comes to those little architectural details. And he was asking me, I don't. He was saying, I don't understand how you work out the mechanism in your head for all these mechanical things that you design. And I said to him, well, I don't understand how you know how to draw all of these buildings and all the details and where you get all that information from. So I didn't quite know how knowledgeable I was about mechanical stuff until you know somebody who I really respect and who I think is a better artist than me is coming to me saying, I don't know how you do that. And that's the advantage of being in a studio full of lots of amazing artists that all know different things, and you can just soak all that up. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, and speaking of like the getting into industry, there's actually a question in the like my catalog of questions I was gonna ask you, and since this is an appropriate time, I'm gonna ask it now. When you were like you said you just settled down in the 7 8 months that you were just working on your portfolio during the time of Brexit. In previously, as you said you buckled down and you just went laser focused on fixing your portfolio to enter the industry. So the question is, what tips or advice do you have for people if they when they want to just prepare their portfolio and resume, and also if there's any extra tips and additional stuff about like you going in an interview and getting into the job, and from your experience, tell us like how it went.
Um, yeah, it's tricky because I think there's a number of different factors in terms of the actual work. I think if obviously I think this advice has been given before, but I think it's relevant, or I think it's got merit, so I'll repeat it. Um, if you want to work for a specific studio or work on a specific type of game, it's useful to have that in mind when you're building your portfolio. So there's no point, and we get this at Atomhawk as well. We're a bit different because we're outsourcing studios, so we've got like 20 different projects on at once. So we'll always be able to use people who have different skill sets and different preferences. So, but there's no point applying to work at CD Projekt Red, for example, if all of your portfolio is like stylized. I don't know, what's a game that's really stylized? Like Mobile
Like
Suit
League of
Gundam.
Legends, for example.
There we go. There you go. Yeah, but you know what I mean? Because although they might be able to see your artistic ability, um, they might not be able to see how they could use you in their games, which are very gritty, very realistic, very dark. So I the personal work that I do in my spare time, those are the kinds of games that I'd want to work on. You know, I'd say that. So my advice is always going to be about setting goals, um, because um, I there's I heard a really good analogy once, and I can't remember where I heard it, but basically, um, say you're in a boat and you're sort of like drifting out in sea, like, and there's an island. What are the chances that you're going to sail into that island if you're not aiming at it? I mean, I've just butchered that analogy, but it's the idea is if you're not aiming at something, you're never going to hit it. So the idea, I, so you go, okay, I want to work at this studio or work on these kinds of games, and then you set that goal, um, and then you say, I really love um, fantasy castles and stuff. So, or I really love um, sci-fi hard surface stuff, like like I do. And you say, I'm gonna aim to be the best that I can possibly be at doing that, and that's what I'm gonna do. And then once you get, and then somebody, the theory is, if you apply to the right studio with the right portfolio, and they can see that you're really, really good at that one thing, um, then this is what I did. Now that I'm in the studio and I'm really, really good at this one thing that I can always fall back on, um, now I've got the space, because I'm earning money, and I'm doing artwork 8 hours a day, and somebody's paying me to do artwork 8 hours a day, which kind of takes the pressure off because it means that I'm being paid to learn and get better. Um, and then you have the space, the breathing room to expand out into other specialities. Um, so my I really love environments, and like I say, I've kind of worked out that my interior design stuff I can translate that across to environments. So I really want to learn environments. At the same time, my bread and butter stuff is doing hard surface design, robots and vehicles and all that kind of stuff. um, but I would have really struggled. Everybody's different. You get people who are just really, really good from a really early age. But I'm an idiot, so I have to learn things, and it has to be drilled into me, and I have to practice and do it over and over again. I don't consider myself to be one of those those geniuses. I'm just like, I, I I I I pick up software quite quickly, but in terms of like artwork, I really have to do it and just sit down and you know get the work done. Um, where was I going with that?
Um, yeah, I think you kind of briefly answered the question to my, like the answer to my question as well, which was about like how to set up the portfolio and all of that, which you briefly went over. And like before I move on to another subject, I just want to say that I'm just absolutely inspired. Like while I went through your art station and Instagram, like completely. Because here's the thing, for me personally, like the exact niche you're working on, like people like you, Sparf, J Jake
You
Jake
can't
Park,
put.
I think. Wait. I know where you're going. Just let me finish. Like
Yeah,
like Ian McQueen. Like the thing is, like of course, all the people I mentioned are on different levels, but they have the same niche. That's what I'm talking about.
yeah,
And yeah, that's what I genuinely am passionate about and love. Would and I actually recently started like actually getting to Photoshop and drawing and learn the fundamentals. I'm still in the early processes, but yeah, robots is something that has always, since I was a kid, fascinated me. Like in every video
love a
game
good
and
robot.
stuff. Yeah, exactly. Like, wait, let me actually tell you one of my, like, for example, a series that I really loved when I was a kid was Tiberium Wars, the RTS game. Have you played that?
I haven't. No. Oh no, hang on. Command and Conquer.
Command and Conquer. Yes,
Yeah. No, I played Command and Conquer Red Alert maybe, but this was a long time ago. I didn't
I,
play
I
Tiberium.
highly recommend to buy the Tiberium
Yeah.
Wars as well. The concept art, the art is amazing.
Yep.
Um, the Fallout universe, I still love it. Since I was a kid, I used to play all the Fallouts.
Yep.
And yeah, Star Wars for just the robots. I mean, I'm not, and I wasn't even a huge Star Wars fan. Not that I'm not saying it's a bad or good thing. I'm not trying to have like a controversial opinion, but it's just saying, my personal, like
You're
my
a Star
personal
Wars
taste.
hipster.
Yeah, like the AT&T robots, I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Yep.
And just spaceships and all of that. Like, you know the rest. Like, we're the same when it comes to this stuff. So I don't need to explain more, fortunately. And yeah, since I brought up topic, let's first went through some of the things I want to actually talk about, which is the general art chat section of the podcast. Well, let me start by asking you about this. Have you ever seen or played any of the Metal Gear Solid franchises games?
I have, and
Awesome. Which
I think I
ones?
know where you're going with this. Um, uh,
Uh,
amongst my influences when I was a teenager, I really enjoyed Final Fantasy VII. All those old PS1 games, but Metal Gear Solid One, the first one with the Metal Gear Solid Rex, Metal Gear Rex. That thing just blew my mind when you first see that.
exactly.
When we were younger, the PS1 graphics looked amazing, and the way they did the camera shots and that just blew my mind. I think that might have had something to do with my obsession with robots. I loved that. I played Metal Gear Solid
Yeah.
2 as well with the Metal Gear Ray. That was really cool, but I never played the third or the fourth one, and I haven't played the fifth one, which I've heard is quite good.
Yeah,
I
honestly,
just
but let me tell you something. Sorry for interrupting, by the way.
no, no,
Um,
it's fine.
from reviewing and playing like a lot of them, I personally really, really the first one with the most magic was Metal Gear Solid One, which you played.
Mm.
The most like Metal Gear Rex, it looked so simple but yet so iconic. Like the it was also the art direction of Hideo Kojima behind the game that
Yeah.
made it so iconic. And another one that I really, really enjoyed was Metal Gear Solid Phantom Pain in 2015. The Metal
Yeah.
Gear that was the main, like in every Metal Gear game, there's a certain mech or Metal Gear that's in the focus of the whole story and plot. And in that game, it was Solanthropus. It was by only in the first bipedal Metal Gear, and it's actually one of the bosses. If you check it later, I think you'll love this. Actually, it's a Solanthropus, and if just go YouTube Solanthropus boss fight, and you'll see what it is. And yeah, and that one's also like I really loved it as well. Yeah, and another thing I want to ask you is, of course, the mind behind all these concepts is the concept artist named Yoji Shinkaba. Have you studied his works or
I
seen his works?
I'm just looking at the Sonantha. That is very cool. Yeah, I have seen that before. It's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. I don't recognize the name, but I will probably, if you showed me some of his work, I probably would recognize it.
His works. He's the main concept artist and the mind behind, like basically Hideo Kojima and Yoji Shinkawa. These two
Yes.
are the
Yeah.
driving factors behind the whole Metal Gear
Yeah. The
franchise,
guy
and
that does
also
all the
now
nice,
Death Stranding.
like really brushworky type illustrations.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love his works.
Yeah.
And another thing, actually, speaking of that, it kind of like speaking of mix of all that stuff. A recent movie that I watched like 2 3 days ago in cinema is Dune, the thing that's everyone been raving about and talking about.
Yeah.
And yeah, have you watched that?
Yeah. Yeah. It was. What did you think of it?
All
I'll
right,
tell you
here's the
what I
thing.
think in a minute. I want to know what you thought.
All right, first you go, then I'll explain later.
Okay. It was for me. It was probably up there in terms of we're talking book adaptations. So I haven't felt like that and since I watched the first Lord of the Rings movie. Like it was that good. I thought it was absolutely spectacular. And I read Dune maybe 10 years ago. So my memory wasn't fresh, but I kind of knew the overarching story. But I just thought they nailed it. There was, in terms of like the designs and the story and the feeling, the visual design, the sound, everything, it was just spot on. I thought it was brilliant,
Yeah, and the thing is, all
despite
right.
only being half a film.
Oh yes, exactly. And actually not half the film. From all the four books, I think the 1/10 of the whole story, the first movie.
Yes.
Even the
Yeah.
second movie is like it will be just a fraction of course I'll try to avoid telling any spoilers for anyone who's listening. And yeah, I mean there's a lot of other books and a lot of stuff will go down. It's definitely one of the OGs of the whole the modern science fiction as we know, like the Star
Yeah.
Wars and Star Trek. They all, of course. Wait, Star Trek I think was a bit older, but the point is, like, the most sci-fi stories that you see are kind of like, in some way inspired from, like, Dune, especially Star Wars as well. And all right, here's my opinion. For someone who've never read the book, and also, I went there with a high expectation and it actually got met. But I had some, like, in general, like, like, wondered about some stuff, like, it was pretty fascinating to me how the writer, like, balanced the whole technological aspect of it, um like, yeah, of course it was, of course, it's a sci-fi film, of course it's gonna have, like, aspects of, like, futuristic stuff, but he made the combat solely melee combat, which was actually I was kind of intrigued, but
Oh, so do you know why
I
that
was,
is?
what
So,
is that?
so the reason for that is because of the personal, the force fields that they all have. So basically,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
that's rendered projectile weapons obsolete. So they fight with in that universe. You can't shoot anybody anymore,
Oh
from what I
yeah.
can tell, because they've got those force fields. So you have to get in close and breach the force field with like a knife or a sword.
Oh, that's actually super interesting. Yeah, that's so nice. And here's the thing, like, I loved everything about it. I liked it, but I don't know. Like, I know a lot of people will hate me right now, but personally, like, it's to me, it's up in one of the top, like, sci-fi films in general that I've ever watched, and it is still not just films, just universes. But I'm gonna be honest, I didn't feel emotional towards it. I mean, a lot of my friends did. Like, a lot of people felt like they wanted to live in the Arrakis with the Fremen and all of that. I,
I don't know about
here's
that. It
the
looks a bit hot, doesn't it? A bit dry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it takes time to, grow on to me more, because here's the thing. I'm gonna tell you two of the
Yeah,
universes that I really still love. Like, two of the just
yeah.
pieces of entertainment and sci-fi media that I really love. One of them is the series Firefly, which is from 20 years ago. Have you watched that?
I haven't.
Please
I've
don't
heard
tell
it's
me you
really
haven't
good,
watched
and
that.
I'm going to be honest. I tried to watch the first episode and I couldn't get into it. But I've done this before. Have you ever seen The Expanse?
No.
Oh, you are in for a treat. So I
Oh,
tried to watch the first couple of episodes of The Expanse on Amazon and I couldn't get into it. And then I gave it another go. And I tell you what, that's got to be one of the best series I've watched in years. It
hmm.
is fantastic. I'd really recommend it if you like sci-fi stuff.
I'll definitely check it out. The Expanse.
If you
And
watch The Expanse, I'll watch Firefly.
deal, deal. I'm actually writing it down. But here's the thing, like, usually with a lot of shows, the first episodes aren't really that good because it's just setting up a plot. But yeah,
Well, with
Firefly, and another thing. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, with sci-fi stuff, it can be quite difficult as well because you have to do so much world building, and you
Yeah,
have to you either do lots of talking to try and explain the world, and it feels really unnatural and clunky, or you have to just hope that the viewer's going to pick it up as you go. And with The Expanse, you kind of have to pick it up as you go because they don't overtly explain everything. Um, so you have to really stick with it. But I think that's just going to be a common problem with anything completely out of our world.
yeah, and another thing I really like is Fallout New Vegas. Not just any Fallout,
Yeah,
specifically Fallout New Vegas's
I've
universe.
I've
Like,
heard
that's
that's the best one.
exactly, that's I'm gonna say, I've been saying it for 10 years. That's my favorite game of all time,
Oh
objectively,
wow.
and it doesn't change. I remember when I was 12 years old, I played it like in like 6 months for like 618 hours. Maybe for some people that's rookie numbers, but for me, that was a lot. And I still play it to this day.
1,600 hours.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Jeez. Whoa. Yeah,
Because,
that's a lot.
dude, there's so much you can do. Like, I love the settings, the stories. Like, it's just a perfect game for me,
Yeah.
because that's the exact niche that I like: post-apocalyptic, mechs, sci-fi. It also has a lot of cowboy Wild West elements, like Firefly as well. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
a space Wild West kind of. It's kind of genre like that. And I kind of like Dune as well because it's also sci-fi and it's kind of in a deserty environment.
Yeah.
Both the two last things I also mentioned are kind of like that as well. I have a thing for that. And Actually, I want to recommend. I'm gonna give a shout out to a YouTube channel that I recently found. I think it's called Queen Ideas or Queen Reviews. Queen as
Yep.
in Quinn. Do you know him?
Oh, yeah, yeah. That
Yeah,
that does ring a
and
bell.
yeah, and I watched a couple of his videos on Dune Universe and some other sci-fi stuff that I've seen but I've never watched. Like the other another sci-fi series I recommend people to check out if you're interested is Hyperion Cantus. It's also it seems kind of like cool to explore as well. I don't know if you heard about that.
I haven't actually.
And yeah, and it seems really interesting. But honestly, Dune, like the main thing I can say about Dune from the movie that I watched and the book reviews and all of that stuff I've seen, the writing, the balance of between elements is so well written. Like as you said, the force field, the melee combat, the the relationships between the houses, and the dangers in the desert versus like how to kind of like avoid the danger. Like the writer kind of put it very beautiful. Like yeah, it's kind of like designing a game. It's a kind of well balanced universe.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
I'm trying to say. That's the main thing that I really enjoy. It's kind of a subtle thing,
Well, it's
and
just it's so difficult to construct a kind of you essentially have to construct like a living, breathing, believable world that's like totally different. I think well the best sci-fi takes elements from like our cultures and our like history, because people can then relate to it. If it's too weird and too different, then obviously it can become quite hard to connect with it. I think like the Fremen, for example, that takes a lot of um, references from actual
Arabic cultures.
uh, well, and then also you've got like the guerrilla warfare of like Vietnamese, for example. It's that kind of because we understand what that is. We understand what guerrilla warfare is because we have it in our sort of world. Um, but yeah, no, I find that stuff fascinating. My design, my concept art design ability unlocked when I realised it was okay to reference the real world and it's not cheating by looking at stuff that human, 10,000 years of human history has already created. You're never going to create anything better than that. Than billions of human minds combined to create 10,000 years of human history. You can try, but it might not be as good.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually the Fremens and the people on the Iraqis were heavily inspired by the Arabic culture. Like even they were saying "lasan al ghaib." That's an Arabic word. I know a little bit of Arabic. Lasan means tongue, and ghaib I think means it could mean otherworldly. It could mean strange. It could mean weird. Like I think it kind of meant otherworldly tongue or something. I guess,
Mm,
and
mm.
that's they were referring to the main character. I'm trying to explain things as spoiler free as possible, and I hope I'm
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
a good job. And another thing, in one part, he like one of the characters was that he keeps seeing in his visions called him Mehdi or something. Mehdi is also a kind of Arabic name as well.
yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of interesting to me as well. Like I thought it was just subtitles that were translating to Lasan al I was like, oh wait, they're actually calling him in the Arabic name in the film. I was like, whoa. And yeah, and so I'll definitely like I'm looking forward to the Dune part two of Dune, and I'm not gonna say anything, but I've seen how exciting in the future the story will get, and I'm sure you know
Yes.
as well. And yeah, so I'll definitely take a look for Expanse as well. So you
Yeah.
can take a look at Firefly as well. I'll promise you won't regret it. And
Well, so um, just so I'm 35 now, and what I've learned, it, so this is a bit of a tangent, but it's going somewhere. Trust me. Um, when you're a kid and like everything's exciting, like oh my god, this is going to be amazing. Oh my god, I can't wait to watch Transformers. I can't wait to get like the new toy or whatever. It's going to be amazing. Like you get really excited. But at the age of 35, I don't really get excited about anything anymore, and I think that's just part of being a grown up. But also, I kind of have this rule that I don't. It's partly a rule, but also partly just like because I'm dead inside. I don't get hyped up for films or games or anything. So I haven't been hyped up for anything since maybe Skyrim in 2011, and it's still not as good as Morrowind, but it was okay. but it's just because um, you know you don't. No, nothing will ever meet those expectations that you have when you're a kid and everything's like amazing. So like I went into June having zero expectations, which is why it blew me away, I think. And maybe if I watched it again, maybe I'd start finding faults in it. But as a rule, I typically don't hype anything up. Whether it's partly by choice, but partly because I'm just a bit grumpy these days. But I think that it just means I enjoy things more when they actually are good.
Yeah, no, here's the thing. I can 100% relate with the couple of sentences you just put together and said about, like, not being hyped up about anything. Like, I'm 24, like, yeah, we have like 11 years of difference, and I feel the same way as you know. I don't think it's necessarily you're that old, so don't worry. And
Well, it
and
looked like I'm your age. So.
yeah, well, that's a bonus. And all right, here's the thing, like, I kind of feel the same as well. Like, especially in the past couple of months, I think it's mostly because of, like, subconscious worries and, anxiousness, that you might have, that even you might try to be in control of your emotions and, like, say, all right, there's a stresses in life, but I'm just gonna stay strong and not worry and just live my life and enjoy things, as small things as I can. But yeah, you're consciously saying that, but subconsciously you can't control it, so there's will still be that element of, like, not fully enjoying stuff and, not really getting hyped and just being, being full of excitement, like when you were a kid, when you'd seen a new trailer of a game or something, so yeah, I think
Yeah,
when those stresses go away, you start to enjoy things, like, genuinely more. And it's tricky thing is it's something uncontrollable. But sorry, go ahead.
no, no, I think that's a really good point. What I was going to say was I don't think it's that I don't enjoy things as much. I think it's just the expectation of those things is lower because, um, so games, for example, I just, so like Starfield's coming up soon. So, 15 years ago, I would have been, oh my God, Bethesda's doing a sci-fi game. It's going to be amazing. I've still got Morrowind in my head as like one of the best games I've ever played. I loved that game. But I just know that Bethesda aren't the company that they used to be. So I don't have any expectations of Starfield because, I know they're gonna kind of, you know, it's not going to be what I want it to be. And now that we live in an age of microtransactions and DLCs and season passes, and I just, I just games just, I'm just very particular with how I spend my time. Now I'm in my mid 30s. I'm very, very aware of how limited um, time is, and not because I'm not saying I'm going to die next year. I'm saying like there's only 24 hours in a day. You have to work 8 hours of that, and then you have to sleep 8 hours. So what you do with the other 8 hours, you have to be really careful. So I don't tend to spend too much time playing um, uh, games that aren't that good. So it really takes a really good game to catch my attention.
Yeah, I can totally understand what you're saying, and yeah, games are like, not the games. Everything has turned so soulless and just, like, back in the,
Yeah.
like, here's the thing. Back in the day, when the graphics, and not just graphics, the hardware was limited, the game designers had to squeeze every inch of their creativity to in
Yeah.
that limited set of, like, hardware and software capability to make that game. And not just that,
Mm.
there were no microtransactions. I mean, there's no wrong with microtransactions. I mean, the game companies should make money somehow, but, like, the direction, the funnel that's going towards, like, there was a magic before in the games. Like, I feel like I'm sounding like such a boomer
Yeah.
saying that back in my day, games were,
You sound old before your time.
yeah. And but honestly, like, even, like, there will never be games, good single player games, like, we had like 20, 15 years ago. Like, I think the last, like, I haven't seen any, like, proper good games. Like, they try to compensate the magic of it with graphics, which I don't give a shit.
Do you know
I
what?
even, yeah, go on.
Oh, no, I was going to say, So one of the best games I played recently, I didn't play it recently, I played it a couple of years ago, was Divinity Original Sin 2. That was really, really good. It's like a fantasy role-playing type thing. And the company that made that, Larian Studios, they're making, it's in early access at the moment, so I haven't touched it yet because I want to play the full release. They're making Baldur's Gate 3, and I think that's going to be brilliant because, they really blew me away with Divinity Original Sin 2. Now they've got the Baldur's Gate license. I think they're going to do something really special with it. Um, so I'm looking forward to that. Um, Again, it's one of those things that I'll worry about that later because who knows when it's going to be released. Because they kind of, I think they crowdfunded Divinity Original Sin 2, so it's not like they've got like big publishers behind them. I don't know how they're going to be doing Baldur's Gate, but I know they've released it into early access to obviously get some more money together. Um, but it's one of those things that will be done when it's done. But so that should be good. But so it's only because they've got a good track record, Anything by like EA and Activision, all those kinds of things, I just sort of I never really bother with stuff like that because I just know what it's going to be like.
Yeah, and let me ask you actually something different about your process. How does your process usually go anytime you want to start working on a new piece or project? Like, what does your pipeline look like?
Well, I'm still kind of ironing that out, and I think I try to change it up every now and again as well because I find if you just do the same thing, like so, I really need to try and push my drawing, my sketching, because I tend to just default to the same kind of process and the same kind of style, and I really want to push that. So like a guy called Brian Sum, I was looking at some of his stuff recently, um, and you just look closely at the amount of detail that he goes into with his mechanics and stuff, and it's just like that next level. So I'm trying to change my process up to kind of push my drawings a bit more and get away from that style that I always kind of end up going into. But generally, what I do is I will get figure out what I want to do or what the brief is, and then write a couple of notes, and then find some references, just things that some stuff from other artists that kind of okay, that's kind of what I'm aiming for, like a benchmark image and mood and stuff like that, and then just if I need architecture reference, I go and find that. Mechanical references, if it's a vehicle, like what is the vehicle, what does it need to do, what's the style? Just I use PureRef, so just gather everything together on a PureRef, and then I'll either do some rough thumbnail sketches, like I do some silhouettes, or I'll do some really loose, quick thinking sketches. Um, Nobody ever sees those because they're so bad, but it's just me getting my head around what I'm doing. Or sometimes I'll go straight into 3D and just do some rough blockouts, and then I can like just sketch over those. Um, I start sometimes use this technique um, where you do like a rough block out and then you project textures on in Blender and then you just paint over the top. But to be honest, I'll probably always do like a silhouette sketch before doing that because it's quite hard to design. Well, I can design in 3D sometimes, but if I'm doing a client project, I won't design in 3D because it's there's too much like it's not as fluid as just doing like a quick sketch. Um, and then I'll pretty much these days always go into 3D environments. I'll definitely go into 3D. So make a model and do textures and lighting and if it's a mech or something, I'll do a rough block out, like I said, and then I'll project textures onto it because what you get then is you get the model you can do the three-quarter views, you can put it in an environment, and then you can also do your turnarounds as well with the same model. So it might take a little bit longer to do the 3D model than if you were just sketching or painting, but then you've just got the model and you can and clients always ask for 3D models because it really helps their 3D artists as well with your design. So I always think it's worth investing time into doing a decent 3D model. Um, and then what you can do is you've then got those pieces and textures to use in new designs and new projects. So it's kind of like this exponential creativity. I know that 3D does kind of make up for my lack of painting ability because I'm not a very good painter, but it's kind of just my thing. I just love working in 3D, so I'm not going to stress myself out about you know being like a master painter when you know I'm just kind of trying to do my job.
Yeah, totally. And all right, I got three questions, and I was wondering if we could bullet through them. All right, I'm just gonna ask, and we
Let's
go
do it.
through each of them.
Yeah,
All right. Are you ready? All
yeah.
right, let's go. The first one. What is the first art job paycheck you ever got, and what was it for, and how did you feel at the time when you got it?
What was the first one? Sorry.
Art job paycheck, the first paycheck you ever got with art.
Oh, that was probably Rooster Teeth, to be honest. Um, I I drew them some robots and then they paid me some money and it was fantastic. I couldn't believe I got paid some money for doing a robot. And then that was when, that was the answer's too long. I'm sorry, we're supposed to be doing bullet points. Go on, next one.
No, actually, if you want, you can go on. No, it's fine, it's fine.
No, I was just going to say that's when once I realized it was possible to get paid money for drawing robots, that was it. I was hooked.
All right, awesome. And all right, the next one is, who are your favorite artists and designers that have inspired you the most?
Um, well, the ones that inspired me from the beginning are the classics. So Sparth and John Park, James Peck, and Feng Zhu, and those are the ones that got me into concept art. And I actually learned so much from Feng Zhu's design cinema on YouTube. Like the episodes aren't very frequent these days, but it's still just like it's unbelievable that guy gives away all that knowledge for free. Like it's a really good resource. When people ask me about how to learn concept art, I always just say watch a few episodes of this, and then you can get a feel for what's going on.
Yeah, and all right, the third one. What are you working on right now, and what you can tell us about what project is it? I mean, of course, if there's an NDA involved, we can skip right past this one. But if that's not the case, what's going on?
Now, unfortunately, uh, the projects that we work on at Atomhawk are like really AAA, quite sensitive sort of stuff. So I am not um, able to talk about any of it, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. And what area beside the area you're working on right now would you be interested to explore and learn in the future? Another way I can rephrase this question is, if time and money and resources weren't an issue, like at an ideal scenario, what would you do? What kind of aspirations would you bring to life if you could? What dreams or aspirations or ideas you have in your head right now?
That's a really good question. I find myself in the really fortunate position that I I think I am doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing. Like this is, having been through essentially I've been through three careers before this. So I've landed on, I think on number four in my 30s, I've landed on what I really want to do. Um, Now, what I will say is that I obviously spend quite a lot of time sitting at a desk looking at a screen, which does get a bit tiring sometimes. So I think if I were to move on to another career, it would be something like physical, something outside, or something like where I'm practical. I mean, and to be honest, like I didn't enjoy it when I was 16, but I often think that maybe going back to doing a trade or something like building or like my electrical work, um, just something away from the screen. Um, but the thing is, because I'm such a creative person, I'll never stop creating. I need to do it. I have to produce things, and at the moment, it's great that somebody wants to pay me to do that. So, hopefully this is it. Um, but who knows? You can change careers at any point. So if that were the case, then I would find a way to do it. So I don't think that's an issue.
All right, and well, we've reached the final section of the podcast, which is kind of called final words, appropriately. And all right, I'm gonna explain what's gonna happen. Have you listened to any of the previous podcasts? Do you know how this is gonna go?
No, I haven't.
All right, awesome. The thing is, imagine right now you have a window of opportunity to anyone who might be listening to this podcast in the future. Like it could be a week, it could be a year, 10 years, 20 years,
Hmm.
6 years, 1,000 years, maybe. I don't know. If the Earth hasn't been disintegrated by then, if you could say anything or things, a message from you to another human, to anyone who's watching, it could be completely non-Earth related as well. Like you have a limited amount of time and you can leave your last words. What would that be? I know it kind of sounds dramatic.
So this is something that I've been wrestling with myself over the last few years, because and this might be a little bit like a bit deep, but it's something that I've been figuring out myself. So I used to think, first of all, I thought if I earned more money, then I would be happy, which wasn't the case. So it doesn't matter how many pay rises you get, you're not happy because money doesn't equal happiness. And then I thought if I just get a specific job, then I'll be happy. But what I've realized is life isn't about happiness and being happy, because happiness is an emotion, and you can't just have one emotion all the time. You're made up of lots of different emotions, sadness, anger. You can't just have happiness all the time, because then it's fleeting. You have all these other emotions as well. So learning that life isn't about happiness, life is about finding meaning and fulfillment. I think i think when I learned that, um and I changed my focus, then I became, funnily enough, I became a lot happier as like a byproduct of figuring out that I shouldn't have been chasing happiness. I was chasing the wrong thing. So, final words. It's a little bit airy fairy, but uh, life is about meaning, not happiness.
From the 25, 35 episodes that I've asked this question, I think this one was my favorite answer, honestly.
Ah, there you
Honestly.
go.
Like, that was actually beautiful. Like, thank you. And all right,
Yeah, no worries.
we've reached the end of this podcast, end of this episode. Thank you so much for coming by, and thank you to anyone who
Yeah,
tuned
not
in
at
and
all.
listened to this episode, whether on Spotify, Castbox, or YouTube, anywhere. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And for anyone who might want to contact you, where's the best way to contact you? Is your Instagram okay?
Yeah, Instagram or ArtStation as well. You can send me a message on ArtStation. But
All
yeah,
right.
always happy to hear from people. Always glad to have a chat. So yeah, thank you very much.
All right. I'll link both your art station and Instagram down in the captions as well. And thanks
Awesome.
again so much for coming by. I really had a pleasurable time. It was one of my favorite podcast episodes ever. Like, no joke. And all
Listening
right.
to me ramble on.
All right. Yeah. I mean, it's rambling about something I like,
That's fun.
so it doesn't count as rambling. All right. Thank you for so much for coming by, and thank you to anyone who tuned in. I hope you all had a good day, or having a good day, or I hope you have a good day. Doesn't matter. Just take care, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.